Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
I'm Swizz.
And Swizz just got bumped up one in the ranks. Chris isn't here yet. He's busy on baby duties. However, he should come into this podcast like a surprise guest, pretty much like what we told him, who has been in previous weeks, how he's the special guest, and it's the BNS show, the Ben and Swizz 1-2 punch combo. It's absolute anarchy. Before we move on, SC Insider 100, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, all the audio platforms as well, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it. And on YouTube, search us like Supercoach Insider. Please do like, subscribe, continue on that support as well. Speaking of support, the injury list is healthy, ladies and gentlemen, and coaches are flowing on a plenty, which we'll get Swizz onto in just a moment. But premiums are falling. You've got Kelly, the Jelly Master, down. Clary got a hamstring strain, possibly some Charlie issues as well. And notice I said premium, Swizz. Holmes is not part of that fucking list.
Well,
you should be ashamed of yourself.
Worked out why. He's been carrying an injury.
Carrying an injury? He's been carrying a 55 average since you floated his boat.
Because he's been injured. Like, what about the transparency coming out July? Oh, yeah, he's been carrying an injury. We're going to take him out now.
We have been very, very transparent on how bad your call was. So there's no way coming back from that.
It sounds like Gold Coast with Took Miller. Have we even got any news update about that?
There's no...
Is Took even in the country? Like,
it's in Bali at the moment, Took, getting a nice tan and enjoying the lovely weather. They call it climate migration, is where you move somewhere for the lovely, lovely weather. But look, Swizz, I'm just happy people didn't ghost us like the Casper recommendation, because your recommendation was so bad. It was so transparent. It was horrible. Holmes is absolutely a dud. And how many times did you get tagged, Swizz? How many times on Twitter?
60% of the time it works every time, mate.
How many times did you get tagged about Holmes today?
Yeah, there's a few, mate. There's a few.
Right.
Well, with all the other information, all the other news going on, I actually haven't been paying too much attention to that. I was just looking actually at Geelong's injury list. That's
and
the Gold Coast
here
Suns,
we were thinking it would be a nice, easy, casual week. It's the week before the buys. You don't do anything. Maybe bank a little bit of cash, get your little nest together, get it ready to launch an assault during the buy rounds, and then we get met with anarchy. And I know people that are still holding on to Setterfield thinking, oh, I can't trade him last week. He's not dropping cash. I'll do it this week. Next minute, Josh Kelly down, Clary down. Ridiculous. To go with the people who had Parrish. And then the DPP conundrum. I'm going in thinking, yeah, this is going to be great. I've got Gorn. He was up to, I think, 38% forward time. I was like, yeah. Next minute, he's 35 flat. And I was like, what's going on? Now he's at risk of not getting DPP, Swizz. And the biggest one, Walshy boy, was at 40%.
40%.
I'll
sold
tell
so
people,
many people into Walsh.
Oh, bring him in. He's 40%. Bring him in, and then plays pretty much pure CBA, or at least midfield, should I say, and it's dropped down to like 35 flat. I've heard of a few people even toying with it was 34, maybe a fringe.
Yeah, I think it's 34. It's like 34 point something.
So they rounded it up on Code Sports.
35. So they have to round it down. It's not like the 34.7 and they round it up.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Code Sports, it's got to get it. Yeah, it's got to be 35%.
I'm going to check my screenshots because Code Sports, I reckon they better not have sold me a lemon here. And so McRae, 60% mid, 40% forward. That one I don't see changing at all. He's played a lot more games. Whereas Walsh, because he was injured, Walsh is the big situation here. No, you're right. Sam Walsh, 34% forward, 1% defense. That 1%, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about the 1%ers. That 1% screwing us right now. Walsh, 1% defense. I can understand Carlton being so bad. Hewitt's not there. He's playing sub, so throw Walsh in defense. But it is now an actual situation where you can't go early on these guys. So even for Clary, I wouldn't recommend anyone outside of maybe McRae as far as those possible DPP options. Swizz?
Yeah, it's
too risky.
It's been brutal. And the thing that killed Walsh was they made Hewitt sub. So all of a sudden, there's a guy that's been playing pure midfield. Who would have saw that coming? Well, we kind of did with the teams, but 2 weeks ago, there's no way they're dropping Hewitt to make him the sub. And all of a sudden, it's like, we're going to just, against Collingwood too. You've got one, and we know how much Chris and I rate Hewitt. He's a great footballer. And okay, we're dropping you to make you sub. Walshy, you're back in the midfield. And Walsh he only had 14 CB8s as well. But instead of having him half forward, moving up like he used to, it's like, we're going to put you on the wing this week when you're not in the centre bounce, and you can come from that position. It's like, what the hell just happened?
Imagine
So,
draft leagues picking up Hewitt at a 112 average.
like me.
Oh, you got him? Oh, man.
Hewitt and Will Brodie were like, oh, well, that's like third, fourth round or fourth and fifth in some of it's gold. Like, great. And it has killed my drafts
All
this
the
year.
people getting in Will Brodie in their draft league as well. Or they were
Just
talking
killed
about,
me.
standard Will Brodie. Yeah, but look at his time on ground. If he improves his time on ground, I was like, he's horrible. Do not go there. Next minute, not even best 22. This season is a roller coaster.
Do you know there's one team I think I've got, and I think four of my first 5 rounds were Mills, Brayshaw, Hewitt, and Brodie. And like, I'm sitting there going, 5 rounds in, what a great midfield. I'm averaging 110 down to my fourth midfielder, and I don't think I've got a Brayshaw. Brayshaw's hanging on by a thread.
Now you are peanuts. All right, so the structure for today is pretty much we're going to go through the Clary options there. Also, if you do have Josh Kelly, so to kind of tie them into that sort of scenario as well. Also looking at the cash cows. Is it too late to bring in a Humphrey, et cetera, and looking at the forward situation. Is it Ford versus Holden? Maybe if he's good enough, you might be able to actually get a Holden on that one. But Swizz, I do want to get your opinion first. Now, I'm not going to dive onto if everyone's on the Twitter or if you're not on Twitter, find us, SC Insider 100 on Twitter. I'm not going to talk about, obviously, what I put out last night. Chris was a little bit more passionate than I was as far as his feelings there. But look, it's all, the dust has settled. Dimmer has called time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you to the Centre Bounce boys who reached out, and a couple other people trying to get me on to different stuff, but the Centre Bounce boys are good friends of ours, so did have a long spiel on them, so thank them for them to let me have my initial thoughts on it.
Well, to be fair, the Centre Bounce boys, they're still they're fresh. They're great lads. Occasionally, if they butcher it up, they can always just throw the ball up, which is the best thing about Centre Bounce. If you butcher it the first time, just, all right, go on. Hey, Grundy, hey, boys, wits, we're balling that ball up. We're throwing it up.
Yes. On that too, we talked about
they're not tossers, but they can throw it up.
We talked about last night, I think Essendon North, we might be trying to organise between the two podcasts, myself and those boys, either at the Essendon North game or even beforehand, maybe a lunch near the Marvel. So look out for some details on our pod for that too. If anyone's free and wants to actually meet me or, Big Joe and, well, actually I should say Big Beard and Medium Beard. But yeah, Dimmer, it's sad. I'm wrapped 3 premierships. I don't begrudge him at all. I've been getting into a lot of Essendon supporters saying, well, there was no way he could go on after a loss to your team and that. It's not like it was North or West Coast. Essendon, how embarrassing. But
was there tension at home this week, Swizz? Because for those who don't know, I mean, your wife goes for
she's
Essendon.
got an Essendon top on, and I nearly thought she was going to come on the pod.
Oh, I was going to say, is she home today?
I was kind of worried about it because usually Monday nights we pod, and so she's not home. But it's Tuesday tonight, so
she is home.
Yeah, she's very much home.
Well, feel free to shout out. I mean, she could almost rip that Richmond poster off the wall.
She has her top on, and she is absolutely loving life at the moment. She's put the replay on. Yeah, it hasn't been good. But yeah, for Dimmer,
what do you do when she puts a replay on? Just go to another room, or or you just go, hold a minute here. I'm just going to play every single final series where we've won matches, and you haven't won a final series in how many years? Is it how many?
Yeah, that's
come
right.
Again? Come again?
7,000 days or something. She'd actually been singing over the weekend. She's part of a choir in Melbourne, so they were out singing and Saturday night. So she got home just as they were going in to sing the song. And she's walked in and the TV's already off, and I was already storming in the bedroom. I wasn't. It actually missed this one of the first dream times I missed. I was a little crook and I was out during the day for a little while. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go sit in the rain. And thank God I wasn't there because, at Richmond Essendon games I get a little carried away sometimes at the supporters. So, but yeah, back onto the Dimmer thing, mate. It's there's the 2 parts to it. So the Dimmer part, like I understand if he's cooked and wants a fresh start, and that I can understand that because it just sort of drags on, and it's probably no good for anyone. As I talked about last night, it's now what happens and what this means from Richmond from a footy perspective and a Supercoach perspective. So does McWalter come in and because of it's a fresh sort of voice, do Richmond sort of kick into gear and they try to get towards finals, or is it a case where they go, okay, they reset come bye time, they're not going to make it. And even though they've already sold their draft pick this year to GWS, do they still try to put games into other players? And we've talked about preseason, like your Steely Greens, that we've picked up in the in
Or
this year's
Judson
draft.
Clark. Here, play him after I trade him back out of my
Yeah,
tight
that's right.
bastards.
Does that mean Samson Ryan and Nank sort of do like he gets more of a role in there and they split the ruck time more? Is it the end of Cochin? I don't think it's Grimes, but Jack Rewalt, these sort of players. How does that all formulate? And it's hard to know because McWalter's like he could become the long-term coach. So is he coaching also to try to put
His resume. Yep.
his resume up, or is he coaching for the good of the club and the long-term view for a coach that we don't even know who could be taking over? So there's a lot of questions to be asked. Nothing changes in regards, I think, Taranto and Hopper. Like they've gone all in on them long-term options. I still think they're very good players. We've seen how good Taranto's been this year. But it's just what happens around the fringes and the rest of the lineup. And yeah, so I think from a Supercoach perspective, it'll be very interesting, especially the mid-season draft. So I think Richmond I'm pretty sure they've got a spot there. So do they target someone where it's a kid that they look like bringing in? And is that another 102K guy that we could be potentially looking at? And this, even though this period of time, it's around that bye period and we're trying to upgrade our teams, a lot of it is one up, one down. So potentially there's Richmond players there that will get an opportunity to look at. So unless it goes the other way, and then they win this week against Port, and then they happen to win the week after, and things completely change. But I don't think that's the case, Benny.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario because they almost get a bit of a free hit to see what their list is capable of. So that way, it's like, okay, well, obviously this year hasn't worked out. New coach, so there might new philosophy, etc. But let's get a good look before the end of the year, and you almost get a free hit because if it doesn't fall, if it does fall through, should I say, it's like, okay, well, obviously we've lost our coach, so a little bit of stuff here. I almost feel sorry because I think it was Grimes, could have been him talking as well, saying with Nankervis being like, hey, well, obviously we're going to mourn him today, and we show respect for him today, but also as soon as we leave here, we've got a game this weekend, so you kind of have to turn around pretty quickly for that. And the last thing I have, Swizz, before we actually go into content is how many 1-point losses have you been to? Because
Over
last
my
year,
time, actually,
after
you know
the
what?
siren, was it the Coast?
It's probably easy to go like under a goal because you don't actually know like probably the 1 point, but under the goal is always heartbreaking as it is. Yes, I was at the Suns after the siren. I think I was at both David Mundy ones for Freo. And
Oh,
I missed the
yeah.
one we won, like going back 7 years ago, when Sam Lloyd kicked the goal after the siren because I got married the day before. So I wasn't going to wiggle my way
Yeah, that was a
to
big
that game
kick, Lloyd,
naturally.
too. That was about
Um,
45 out, wasn't it? It was like 50
yeah, I
meters on
actually even
on an
asked the other
angle.
half. I'm like, "Can I go?" And she's like, "We literally got married the day before." It's like that's not happening. Um,
You just got to put down the bed work first, mate. Then,
there actually is a funny footy story actually about that, but we'll yeah. So
digress.
I've seen a few. Even going back, like I think I've been to quite a few draws, and I'm sure I could work out. There's some games in the 2000s there where I know I think the Swans got us a couple times late. North Melbourne's got us a couple times late. It's just it's brutal. Even maybe the Lions. So yeah, no, it's absolutely brutal watching. And I know we've been really poor the last 12 matches that we've had under a goal. Oh, look at this bloke.
Hey, I was just showing everyone I cracked this open yesterday. It's a Talisker, Chris, and it's the aged 11 years cask strength, which is absolutely delicious.
Is this the scotch that you had the night that you got drunk a couple of days ago? I was watching your team pod.
No. Oh, yeah, man. No, that was meanwhile,
Thanks for the invite, by the way. That was really nice of you.
guy from work. Excuse me. Last time you went to the footy,
I remember you talking about all these mates that you have and not hanging out with me. And
yeah,
I get it.
It's like,
That
I
makes
have all
sense.
these mates, and then you see me in a bar sitting by myself.
So Ben, to quickly finish my thing, yeah.
No,
so
your story's now done. Chris is here.
No, I was going
You're
to just
cut
say,
off.
yeah, Chris can get in a second. But just be watching the VFL form of, in particular, Jacob Brewer, Sam Banks, Steely Green, and maybe Kalen Brachty. So they're all the ones 123K and less that could potentially be getting games for Richmond now, if that's the way they go. So yeah, there could be some value on the way.
Yeah, right. These are little baby bottle 200 mils. So, Chris, little side note there, and this has been a nice intro. We pretty much just spoke a whole bunch of smack waiting for you to get here, and Swizz cried for about 15 minutes talking about Dimmer. So,
No, I was just talking about the potential of what direction we go, and if it's sort of blooding some more young players, there could be downgrade options on the way that we need to be aware of.
I only
Depending on-
reminded him of our homes twice as well. Everyone in the
okay.
community did it 6 times for me today. So anyway, I am too cheap to go to a whiskey bar, it found out, because it's 5 times the price. Like something I could spend, if it's $10 for me at home, and I've got a lot of whiskey at home, ladies and gentlemen, it's like $50 for a nip. And I'm like, I'm not paying $50 for a nip of whiskey. Like, I'll just buy a bottle. Thank you very much. And that's
Yeah.
On that,
pretty much
Benny, I was just a couple of mates that do podcasts over in America, or that they do their wrestling podcast. They just did their annual drunk podcast and that. So that surely that's going to be coming up during the buy period. And that's always good fun.
Annual
responsibly.
drunk, don't. Yeah, I'm on a challenge, bro. I can't be doing that shit.
Yeah,
I
so
had,
it's
after-
called the-
I had
when
my
does your
one
challenge
day.
finish? When does your challenge finish?
It was an 8-week one, and it started 2 weeks ago. It's 2 weeks
Okay,
today.
so
So
6. So we're talking
weeks.
6 weeks
Yeah.
time.
It's called the
countdown's
podcast
on
before.
after the buy period. Goodbye
After
for the
buys, if the pies are still number 1, then we'll talk about it. All right.
We'll talk drunk cast.
Yeah. Or it's not the drunk podcast. It's the day before Chris's fitness challenge podcast, or not the
Yeah.
weekend of the first weekend of his challenge because he's at the races getting pissed, getting spotted by the public.
Yeah, it's been
That
a
is
rough.
us.
It's been a rough week, guys. We've had the Lakers eliminated today and a clean sweep in the Western
I don't
Conference
care about the
Finals.
Lakers.
Stuff about this.
We've had
Man
Liverpool.
I've had
Liverpool
my Man
unlikely
City
to
talk on
make.
all week.
Yeah, well, no one cares about City. Liverpool unlikely to make the top 4.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's all right because the Bronx are tied for first, and the Pies are first as well. So 50% can't win everything, mate. Can't win everything.
50% time. All right,
All
so
right.
let's go into rookies first away. So we don't talk over each other, you Muppets. Let's start doing the little finger magic,
No.
also known as Chris on a Friday night.
Just let me go.
With a bit of lube. Right. So Humphreys. Now, Humphreys is one we have had questions about, and it's funny because almost conflicting, because I was saying you surely can't bring in Humphreys for 285K, and then I'm pretty sure I've seen either of you boys saying, yeah, like go for that. So
No,
285K, is he too late, Chris? Maybe you're the one that said, yeah, go Humphrey.
Look, I'm getting Humphrey, but it's I think you can, but he's not really a downgrade. He's more of a sideways, pretty much from any one of your rookies that you got. So I'm basically sidewaysing him from Jinby, right? So it's a cash play, but it's also a play to cover the buys. Jinby has, I think, is it what buy do they have? Is it the 12 or 14?
Well, their opponents have the buy every week, Chris.
Yeah,
that is the correct answer.
Trash. Chris and I have been saying that for 2 years, that they're trash.
I just can't believe bloody Weddle made 62K this week, and I could have brought him in at 160.
Amazing.
Yeah, so with Humphrey, like I was obviously big on him last week, and then he came out with that exact same role and absolutely dominated again.
You didn't get him, did you? Yeah.
You look good live.
I have a really, really tune into the weekly pod, guys, because I've recorded after this. It's an absolute shit show. You know how like I feel like I've had like a pretty decent run this year. I've had the best run into the top 1,000 that I've had all year. Like I was ranked 800, and then in one weekend I managed to completely capitulate my side and run into the ground. So yeah, it's going to be an absolute shit fire. But yeah,
so I'm the highest ranked out of the 3 of us now, am I?
Probably. I'm like 1,600, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm 5,000.
Anyway, so Humphrey. So yes, so role was consistent. So the last 3 weeks we've had the same role, and he's gone 64, 116, and 100 flat, wasn't it?
101.
101.
Yeah.
So look, what do I expect out of him? I probably expect from here in that role about an 80 average. I'm not expecting lights out, but I do think that in that role he can continue to be good. They look for him. It's not like a lot of kids who come into these teams and have half decent roles. A lot of the time they're just overlooked. They would pass the ball to Humphrey more than they will pass the ball into Rowell, and I was like, what is happening here?
He's got
ridiculous.
Good footy sense too.
Well,
like even the movement he had. So sometimes they didn't even go to him, but the footy smarts on him when he pushed up and it came back through. And if there maybe someone marked it just outside 50, like he's doing all the things that you would expect. He's actually, pushing off his opponent and then cutting back to the opposite side, trying to free himself up as an option. Like all of the stuff that you actually want your half forward flank, etc., to be doing. Swizz.
The difference is this week he actually went up in possessions but didn't lay a tackle. The previous 2 weeks he'd laid 5 tackles in each game. So they're definitely looking for him more, but he's even got more improvement if he puts it all together and
You
puts
just can't touch the Lions, Swizz. Can't touch us.
that is the way you guys play. Your ball movement's awesome, but there's definitely and this week playing up in Darwin, I'm pretty sure that's where it is. I know it's TIO, but they're both named after that. There is a bit of more of a chance that the game will be a bit more contested, slippery game. So he's got the potential to lay more tackles and back that up. And he's projected to score 64 for a 50K increase. So very much could definitely go another 100. And if he does that, well, then you're looking at it could be 70K this week. So I get why people may be still thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is obviously the Bulldogs are a tough midfield to score against, but with his role, he's obviously playing a little bit more half forward that moves into the midfield. So he's getting around that. But Bulldogs just lost who off the half back line? They lost
Johannesson.
Johannesson. So yep. So that's what's one that they've gone down. Maybe that means that Caleb Daniel goes to that half back role that he's obviously familiar with. Who knows what they'll do? Bevo with his magnets again.
Yep.
But he's a really big dude. So who does he draw in that role as a defender? I'm not sure. Maybe it's Bailey Dale. In that sort of situation, that will drag Bailey Dale out of his distributor role. Do they really want to do that? Like, I'm not entirely confident on who they play on him. But he's probably going to dominate physically most matchups off that half back line. So I actually don't mind him for scoring this week either. Laird did get a hold of the Dogs last week, but obviously they just kind of ran over the top and didn't really care how many possessions he got. So I suppose it's a little bit of a false pretense.
Yeah. People are caring about Dawson now because of the damage he actually has.
Yeah.
His ball in
So
hand.
look, what does he make over the 3 weeks or the 3 bye rounds that he's playing? Probably, I would say, close to 100 grand. And he obviously plays those 3 tough rounds. So this week, the round 12, the round 14, round 15. And his job security is as set as you could be in that squad. Atkins obviously has all the same benefits. There was another article that came out today saying Lockie Weller is still managing that knee. It doesn't look like it's actually coming good at all. Still under TBC. So that doesn't look like he's going to be coming back this week. It's literally going to be week to week for that. And so Atkins could be one that you want to jump on if you really wanted to. Personally, I don't really need him. Like I understand that now. But with Weddle scoring at 116, Seamus Mitchell seems to be going 75s to 85s every single week. Yeah, I don't really need like my D6. I actually have I have Day in there this week, but I'm looking to transition out of that so that I can play more of these rookies on field because I'm getting some really decent scoring out of them. Humphrey can play in your forward line or your midfield, so he's probably more valuable to you than Atkins if you were to throw up the 2, just based on the rookies that we currently have in other positions. Outside of that, you've got there's another expense. Oh, so Weddle. So I don't know if he can reproduce that sort of game, but I can see him averaging 60 to 70 regularly with some decent scoring. I don't think he's one you pull the trigger on and bring in, even though obviously he's got a fairly negative break even. He's got a pretty bad buy. Like the round 14 buy is almost as bad as the round 15 buy. You're probably trading him out by then anyway. Like I think that week you probably have to trade him so you're not getting him for the round 15. You're not going to trade him next week. So the obviously the 2 rookies that you're probably looking at getting in are Ford and Wardlaw, right? So if you're trading them, you have to trade them in next week. You're probably not trading Weddle in this week to trade him out next week. So that doesn't seem to be a thing. So to me, I think that might not be the best of things. I think it's got to be the Atkins or Humphreys. And obviously they're probably both going to make 100K. They're probably both going to score somewhere around that 80, average around that 80 mark across those games. Atkins still has that question mark because of Weller, but doesn't look like anytime soon that's happening. But that's a little bit of a knock, not necessarily the only reason you would look at it. I think overall you got to look at your team and say, where do I need the on-field scoring? And then make a decision from there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's the same. And with Weddle, even this score was huge. He's made 100K in 2 weeks, which I hate. Envious, really good form and and you don't play West Coast every week. But when you look at the first 3 rounds he played, 38, 54, 65, there's every chance he
He's
could
just
drop a low score at any point. So you don't take that risk to bring him in at that inflated
he
price.
has. Look, watching him play, I would have to say that Weddle has just looked better every single week, and it just looks like even if you go all the way back to the preseason games, he looked like a deer in headlights. I think he just needed that continuity of, okay, this is the speed that we need to play at, and this is what I need to get to. And every week he's come out and matched that and improved and matched that and improved. I'd see him as an absolutely fantastic footballer moving forward. I did not see this game this early in his career. Like that is a bit of an aberration in my opinion. So, but
Keeper leagues.
yeah, he's a great pick. But yeah, I don't see that as a normal thing every single week anyway, because the role's not conducive to that. Like he's not going to get. What did he have? 20 something, 28 disposal or something, and
yeah,
2
lots
goals
of kicks, 2
stupid.
goals. So
Yeah,
you think
that's not an every week thing.
You think he'll keep his head above the water? Is what you're saying, Chrissy
He
boy?
will.
No,
Yeah.
well, then you were talking about he had to pick up the pace. So I mean,
Yeah.
he pretty much he couldn't just
Oh, he's
whittle
got-
about.
He's got job security until at least his bye, in my opinion. Like even if he drops a poor game this week, I think they still have to play him based on his recent form. So
Yes.
if he's the one that you didn't get out of those 3, then I guess you could probably get him if you're stretched for by round 12 bye players, but I don't think you really are. Or the other option is obviously bring him in the hope that he plays round 15, but I think that that's not necessarily a great thing because your likelihood is you're going to have to trade him round 14 to make sure you're fielding everyone. So, yeah.
The last option is Baldwin, who's also, they're all inflated prices this week. There's no one really cheap unless you're going super cheap. So yeah, maybe if you have the auto selection for that one. But the other thing is obviously the injuries is where most people are at, because I don't know anyone that's actually avoided every single one of the injuries for this week is probably the other one. So Baldwin is 172K. I think he's been playing defense.
Yep.
Is what they've been saying for Essendon there. And the only benefit outside of that is, his scoring's been, strong enough, had better, I think, a first round there where he scored a 76 against the Lions, 60 against Richmond. But the real kicker is they play West Coast North the next 2. So there could be a little bit of meat on the bones coming into those 2 rounds to possibly make some money. Now, if he scores a 53, he goes up 40K this week. So there is some possibility and some temptation, because I know Matt Grimo, who we mention all the time, we should probably get him on at some point, Swizzy. I know he's shy. I know he's shy, but
I know he's shy,
we mention him all the time. He is someone that is being floated, but Laverde, his shoulder's apparently ahead of schedule. So does he impact his potential? And that also came from, just trying to have a look, is Albro on YouTube also spoke about Laverde. Bless him.
I'm more on the Jake Kelly coming back from concussion. So that's just the
Has he been out for
one.
2 or 1?
Yeah, I think he's missed 2 now off the top of my head. Let me double check that, but he definitely obviously is the one that's the worry. Even if it is only 1, he comes back the following week. So you're only getting Baldwin potentially for 1 week there. So what's Kelly miss? Round 7, 8. What are we up to? Around 11. So he has missed 2. So unless they, for whatever reason, don't want to risk him and take him over to Perth, but he's definitely back for the North Melbourne game.
Yeah, and if he's playing defense, Kelly's
locked into that defense.
Yeah.
And that's without even mentioning Laverde, as you've said, coming back from that shoulder. So they've got their full back line coming back. So what happens to Baldwin there? And then that does it. And even though Baldwin can swing forward, well, they're not swinging him forward because not only do they have options, but there was someone, I think, is Harrison Jones, possibly. No, he's got his back injury, but I feel that there was somebody coming back. Well, even maybe Shield comes back into the midfield and then somebody gets pushed back forward. So, yeah, I think there's too many players coming back for me to want to even look at Baldwin.
Yeah, I mean, the other one is Fleeton. So he's just shored up some job security because Himmelberg and Nick Haynes have gone down this week. In fact, I think there's 4 GWS players that have gone down. I think that he might be forced to play a little bit more key position. And that probably opens up a spot for Fahe to be a debut this week. So there is another rookie there that you're probably going to want to jump on. The other one that's interesting, so I suppose we talk about this now because it is going to be a contentious thing next week. Do you go early? Now, the thing with next week, so you do get 3 trades, but you're probably not upgrading anyone, right?
Chris, can you please disclosure for all the people that you are used to going early? Continue.
Thanks very much, man. I try to avoid be. I've been seeing someone about it, So there's 3 players that have played their first game that are kind of rookie priced. So you've got obviously Wardlaw. He's just under 200k. I think he's 193. Looked very, very good, by the way. First half was brilliant. Second half definitely slowed down, but was good enough in the first half that you'd go, yep, I passed tick. I test tick, sorry. Or I pass.
I pass.
He does pass the ball. Eddie Ford looked fantastic. Obviously, his score was the real highlight, and 123k rook, which is really what you want to see. Now,
He's
unfortunately,
like 3
his
years
role,
in, yeah? Like
no,
third year,
2 or 3, yeah.
Didn't
The
play
problem
many
is his
games, though.
role.
Yep.
He's absolutely lit up the VFL at times, so he's got it in him. But role is hard to score that consistently. So definitely one that I want to look at, because that 104 is going to be in his cycle in that first round of the 3-round cycle anyway. You potentially bring him in anyway. I think obviously Wardlaw is probably the one that you go, okay, he's now ready and they want to get games in him. A little bit like Humphrey in the fact that because it's such a high pick, you know that they want to get games into him.
Yeah, I think also, regardless of how you're feeling, I think waiting the week is huge, because I remember Scott getting 100 his first round and then sputting. And that first one, and the reason I say to kind of wait, that first one drops out of the cycle real quick. So if you have your 3 price rise, yeah, you got a great price rise for your first one, and then it's gone. Like, it's literally gone. And the other thing I'll say about Ford is that they're not the most reliant.
Play on words. I lied. There's actually 4 guys I should look at. So the third one is McAndrew, who's a 123k rook, of course. I think is he ruck forward?
Ruck forward, yep.
Ruck forward.
Definitely was on our preseason radars.
Yeah, he had a 53, which is not too bad, but he comes up against Pitney this week. And Pitney is one of the most restrictive scoring ruckmen in the league. So he could obviously shit the bed. Their ruck stocks have taken an absolute battering, though. And so he may just get by because there's no one else.
Well, it's not even just their ruck stocks, Chris, because Amati, Logan McDonald, like that, their forward line's been crucified, and even their back line with the McCartan boys. So they're literally down to like Buddy and McAndrews, their whole tools at the moment.
Yeah,
I think they needed McAndrew because Buddy was getting the number 1 defender, and he's like, "Come on, guys!" I'm like, "How old am I?" And I'm getting
that's right.
I'm getting the number 1.
They literally had no other, because you look at their injury list. So Rampy's still 5 weeks away. Reed's done for the season. McDonald, McCartan, Laddams. Hickey's the only one that's a test, but probably misses this week again, and then Amati. So they're outside of Hickey, who could come back the week after. All those guys are looking like long-term injuries.
And the other one, guys, is Kieran Briggs. So he's actually priced at 254k. So he's not exactly rookie priced.
Gawn DPP, throw him in your forward line and just Briggs all day.
Gawn's not getting DPP. Gone.
Well, I reckon he does. I still reckon Gawn does get bit DPP. I think he
better chance than Wolf.
Hope he gets 34.9%.
So this is the thing. So you could downgrade to Briggs, put Gawn into your forward line or similar, or if you're running Darcy Cameron or something like that in your ruck because you somehow got early news that he was actually playing last week, whatever it might be. There's a chance that you could get Briggs into that R2 spot and then move someone forward. He obviously scored 109 in his first game. He looks like he's definitely come along. It was obviously I think he was a first round draft pick in his draft year as a ruck and was taken as the best ruck in that year. However, has taken a long time to develop and of course has had Bruce and Flynn in front of him. So, so I'm not sure what his job security is like, but he comes up against Geelong this week, which looks to be a pretty easy matchup because they've lost their rucks as well, haven't they?
He was a second round draft.
They've got
pick,
Segler.
Chris.
What was he, pick 19?
No, 34, second round.
Really? Okay.
2018.
I thought it was,
maybe
I thought it was like teens.
Flynn might have been the first rounder.
Okay.
That seems about right.
I think
take somebody.
Regardless, Briggs was still regarded as the best ruck in that draft year, but there obviously wasn't many to choose from. So look, how his job security is, I'm not too sure, but 109 in his cycle, you can see for next week against Segler. Did Segler get injured?
No, Segler. I think Segler's fine. I know the other Geelong ruck is still injured.
Stanley, yep.
I know Stanley
Stanley's
is.
injured. Yeah.
I didn't see anything about Segs though.
Or maybe they just subbed him to as a because I'm pretty sure he
As
was
a
subbed
warning,
last week, wasn't he?
as a warning. No, Simpson was a sub, and he hurt me on 20 Supercoach. So,
Classic, yeah.
Segler had 78 Supercoach, 21 hitouts, 12 touches.
Okay, we can all concede that Segler's not the greatest of ruckman, right? So he's got a decent chance to score this week. His run's not amazing though if you look forward. So just bring it up now quickly. Here we go. All right, GWS's ruck run. So then they have Richmond, so Nank, so not too bad in terms of scoring, but has a high score of 42 against them. So maybe that was as a forward, which also needs to be taken into consideration. But then North and Freo before his bye, and then on the back of the bye has Melbourne. So that's probably 3 of the hardest rucks in the league to score against all in a row. So the next game's all right. If he tons up, then you could look at getting him on for a quick cash play. Though I'm not too sure how much he makes and whether or not it's going to be enough points on field because you'd probably at that price want him to have it on field. And of course with the back buy, you probably are just trading him out in that round 15, right? You're probably not holding him for that round.
So 12, 13, 14, pretty much trying to get a 3-week cash play.
So with those 4 guys, and you can obviously only maximum bring in 3 anyway, or do you even want to bring in 3? Who are the guys that you were looking at getting in? And I suppose the good thing is with McAndrew, they have the first buy, right? So you don't actually have to pick up McAndrew until round 13. So if he's still got a gig and Hickey's still injured, he's around 13 downgrade, not around 12. So there's technically 3 that you can look at.
If Gawn gets DPP and you're a Gawn owner, I don't mind if Briggs tons up again. I don't mind going that play because you almost be able to get rid of him to use that cash to probably get to like an English or someone or other, like upgrade all the rest of your positions. I think he shares the same buy as the Dogs, which isn't ideal, but then straight after that, you should be able to then move him on. So I don't mind that play as your last potential upgrade. If you sort all the rest of your positions, and you've got Gawn and Gawn gets DPP and you can't afford an English, then I don't mind it maybe as much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, I don't hate anything these days because my team's so cooked. I need to look at different things. But would we be because of the lack of decent cheap rookies? Would we be looking at bringing in those sort of guys, or are we just going to
I'd wait a week?
Waiting a week?
Yeah, the reason I think wait a week is because, as you said, you're not bringing in any premiums next week. Because they're just going to have their buy coming up. So if I'm going to trade, it's going to go down to bank cash so I can bring in round 12 premiums the week after.
What about if you want to upgrade this week and the only way to do it is with a 123k player and the only one you don't want Fleeton and you'd rather take a risk on forward? Yeah. I think that there's
points on field. It's the risk reward. Points on field.
I would rather you try to find a way to do it via Wardlaw. I know this is the debate I think some people are having with Darcy Wilmot, where he's still got maybe another 20k and he could be an option to keep through the buys. But others are going, okay, Wilmot's 300k, that's 100k down via that, and Wardlaw's sort of the guy that could be the next Ashcroft play out the season there. So
I mean,
I can see why people are looking at that play.
I have Wilmot, and I think Rich comes back this week and his scores go back to 50. So for me, it's like, okay, I'll hold him for one more week. But if Rich is back, I'm not expecting him to play that same half-back role, and I'm expecting him to pump out a 50 or a 60. And that's okay. Thanks, mate. You've done your job.
Yeah,
I'm not looking at holding him through the buys for that purpose.
His break even's 15. So even if it's a sort of 50 this week, it's still
exactly. It's still worth holding him. Yeah.
Take your cash.
But you also got to look at like the rest of your team. Like not many people have rookies that are ready to go. Like even like I'm bringing in Humphrey this week, right, from Jinby. So Jinby was really ready to go. Wilmot's my next one in the line that is like ready to go. Otherwise, Mitchell's not ready to be cut. Weddle's not ready to be cut. Who else we got? Yeah, obviously you're not cutting Atkins.
Simpson's all of a sudden ready to cut. because of the 20. So
Yeah, he's got a week though, 59 break even or something. So you've got a week on Simpson, I think. If he gets named, he could get. If he's dropped, then see you later. He's done. He's dead to me.
Yeah, we've got you've got Matty Johnson, who still made a little bit of money, which was good, which was great. But obviously, with that sub and that 37 now in his cycle, that will slow him down a little bit unless he gets on field this week. A lot of people have Chincotta. Like, is Chincotta going to get named again? I think he's really close. I think was it Boyd that played? He played terribly. He was the worst on ground by a long shot, and that's saying something because there was a lot of shit Carlton players on the weekend. So I think that, they might look at that as he was obviously very close because he was the travelling emergency.
Yeah, didn't play VFL.
Mate, I think you're harsh on Boyd there because I did watch Mitch McGovern play that match.
Oh my god!
Oh, come on, guys!
Can we just have a little bit of a moment for
poor JP and our mate Damo? Carlton supporters out there just already turning in their grave. They come on here, they think it's a safe place because of Hardwick leaving, and then we still shit on Carlton. And we've actually shit on Carlton more than we have on West Coast right now, which is worse.
Here's one that I'm probably going to bring up in my live Q&A tomorrow, a non-footy question. At what point, as if you're having a conversation, if us three were at the footy together and we're having a conversation, what point are other people allowed to join into our conversation? Because my mate's there as a Carlton supporter, and he's like, well, I'm definitely not clapping this lot off, and Mitch McGovern should never wear the Carlton jumper again. Where a few Carlton supporters in the vicinity decided to join into my mate's private conversation there and get up around them and start clapping and be like, well, no, that's a disgrace. I'll always clap my boys out, and how dare you talk about that about Mitch McGovern? So that very interesting where it nearly got into a bit of an altercation there over two people having a discussion over what their thoughts about Carlton are.
And that's why your attitude is why Paddy Dow is still on your list.
That's right.
Because you give everyone a bloody certificate.
You clap them off.
Give them a little ribbon. You've run 100 meters, Paddy Dow. Have a ribbon. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Did you know Paddy Dow is 187 centimeters?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. It's the same size as DeGoey, but he plays like a plays like a Caleb Daniel running at the football.
Setterfield, isn't he a 187?
Nah, said he's like 192. I thought he was short. He looks like a midget out there.
No, he plays short, and he could be 187K, and I would not go there for 187.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that was just interesting. My mate brought that up, and it was like, just bizarre.
Sidebar, who was the most disappointing top 5 pick since, or all I can think of is Paddy Dow. Top 5.
Probably Cam Rayner.
No, he's still playing. He's on a list. So I'm saying, who's the most disappointing?
Mate, he's been gifted 100 games, that kid, honestly.
Excuse me, Sprainer does things of brilliance. Dow has not done anything brilliant.
Look, Cam Rayner's a great role player, but that's not what you expect from a number 1 pick.
I agree with that. But for a top 5, he's still actually versatile, right? Now, the only sensible thing Paddy Dow has done is play for the VFL, so he saves himself the embarrassment. Who else in that top 5? In any year level, in any year level, top 5.
Tumpus was really bad. Trengove went bad after a while. Scully had like one good season. Those years were pretty rough.
There's hope. Watts went well for a season, didn't he? Watts did pretty well for
when he went behind the ball and then he did his knee.
Dow was pick 3, so it's nearly as bad as you get. Especially
and look at who was pick 4. Who was pick 4? LDU. Yeah.
Who was a slow start, but he got there. Will Setterfield was pick 5 in his draft year.
Yeah, and he's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT of rehab. That'd be an interesting
what is it? Will Hoskin Elliott. I mean, he's been a great role player, but he's obviously I think he was a top 4, wasn't he? Pick 4. Will Hoskin Elliott.
Was he that high?
I feel like he is. I was actually scrolling through to see if there was any the obvious one, the number 2 for Brisbane.
Oh, Shacky.
Josh Shacky.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Shacky has to be.
He's
he starts a thread that he regrets immediately.
He does. He's like, let's talk about this guy. Number 2.
Where's your Melbourne jumper this week?
Shacky's worse than Dow, and he's played more games.
That one, mate.
He's played more games than him.
I love chatting footy with you boys.
I forgot all about Shacky. All right, so that's the rookie scenario at this current point in time. I'm all for holding. This week, I'd probably preference fixing any injury trades that you have. I don't like bringing an expensive rookie unless it's a sideways scenario that Chris was talking about. You're probably not going to be able to bank heaps of cash. And then wait for one more week's data. You get the 3 trades. If you have a boost, then that's 4 that you could possibly use. start to load up, start to bank some money, start to make some moves, particularly loading up for after that first bye. Because there's like St Kilda, there's Brisbane. So you've got like, Neil, Sinclair, Steele, like any of these sort of boys, even Essendon as well, isn't it? They have the first one, I believe.
No. It's Fremantle, Sydney, St Kilda, and what's the other? They're not a Spud team.
Okay, so Sydney,
St Kilda, Fremantle.
So Gordon, you wouldn't bring him at
my God,
650k though, whatever he's going to be.
Who's the other bloody team in that bloody?
That's all right. So the other thing to consider as well, boys, is I know I've put it on the chat, the streams as well. Nat 5 had CBAs this week, Chris. Sit for a week.
Oh,
Yeah.
250k. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think Neil.
Yeah.
200. He'll be 250k after his bye. He'd be a great F7 M9 for the poor people like me that don't have.
Dude, I don't need an F7 that's
30.
averaging 49.
Yeah, I don't need 30
he'll be
freaking
averaging
field.
80 plus for the rest of the year.
God.
Dude, he played
After the bye.
fucking terribly.
Yeah,
Did you watch the game?
Awful.
CBA, he's getting up.
I
I
can't
don't
believe
care. He played terribly.
Because I didn't watch a lot of the Freo Geelong game. I barely watched it because I'm out there. I'm playing cricket. Where I come off the field.
Oh, out there winning community awards.
Yeah,
Hi, my name's Swizz.
No, we controversial draw this weekend. But and all I'm hearing is all this talk. Oh, I'm going to bring in 555 this, that. So I go and look up his scores thinking, did I miss something here? Did he go like 100? He's back.
Went
and
like
that?
50,
I'm like,
didn't he?
He's got 50. I'm like, what is everybody on about?
Yeah.
Why does everybody want him?
Hey,
He had 250 meters against too. So I suppose let's call it a 65 and call it even, eh?
Okay, we'll call it 65 then. But
He was
whatever.
and he was subbed. He was subbed because he was so bad. He was so bad he was subbed.
They're building him. It's like this is
Port
the
Adelaide
moment.
have been building Wines as fitness. That's how you build fitness. Fife, they're like, well, we'll just give you a token game because you were the captain and whatever.
He's building.
Oh, mate.
Fife is building some CBAs. And not only that, Fremantle actually started to win a few games. So I think there's also a bit of pressure on the coach.
Yeah. I mean,
here's the thing.
They've been winning games while he's sub.
Yeah. So they only were up by 10 points at 3/4 time. It's not like they could put the fucking Q in the rack.
Well, with 5 off, it's worth at least 2-goal advantage. Anyway,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. They don't need him.
After his bye, after his bye,
they've gone 5. Get off the ground so we can win this game.
You're forgetting the fact
taking up a spot.
You get to have a good-looking name on your bench, right? That can cover you forward and mid for 250,000. I am 100% going there after the first bye.
Go for it, mate. I don't have enough trades to do that. I
don't have enough trades either. But I think
Abdul's on that play as well. I'm pretty sure the great man's on that, and that probably
Abdul,
says everything about it.
What a sensible and logic man that guy is.
Let me have a look here. 250k other options there that I'd rather get.
No one.
Wardlaw for starters for 60k cheaper.
Yeah, he's not DPP. So move on.
Yeah, not interested. So have we discussed the Clary news? Obviously, he's out for pretty much.
No, we actually haven't on that.
All right.
Not in depth. Is it injury or is it Charlie? Or is it
we can't. I don't know if we can actually go over the rumors and stuff. What mental health and everything else that's been thrown around. But yeah, it's even if you take it on face value for the hammy.
I'm confused.
Well, this is the hard thing. Even if you take it at face value and just say it's the hammy, he grabbed at the hammy in the third quarter. He's played out the rest of the game, and then he's tried to train Monday, which apparently didn't go that bad. So this is where the discussion is going. It's very confusing because all of a sudden it's 4 weeks. Some people are like, it's maybe 1 to 2. We'll let it see how he goes. And then you've got I've got Melbourne mates message me going, it's been listed as indefinite, and we don't know how long it could be. So there's is this another Gold Coast with Took we were talking before, where they still haven't updated us how long Took's going to be out for? And this is my worry with it. If it comes back to bite me, a bit like Paddy Cripps last year, and Oliver magically comes back after a week or 2 weeks, I just suck it up and whatever. But I don't want a situation where this drags on to be all of a sudden it's 5 weeks or 6 weeks because lack of information coming out. And I hate transparency around clubs with this sort of stuff because this is making no sense to me at all.
He is also the second most expensive person on your list. Now, what can you do with that? What points per week can you do with that? You've also got captaincies. I mean, Clary to Neil is 100k. Clary to McRae is 110. So as in you could actually make some money, right? Get more points on field and then move up in rank. So if you are someone who's trying to push and bite the bullet, sometimes I know it sucks. You just got to get rid of them and take the points hit and try and move up in the world. And if that means that you risk it for the biscuit and then run out of trades, then so be it. You run out of trades. Like these are the opportunities to really try and push up in rank because everyone is quite closely gathered with similar teams. If you are holding and everyone else is trading, they are literally going to move past you. And the only way you're going to go back past them is if they run out of trades and somehow Clary goes on an absolute heater. So the consideration is, sorry, Swizz, is that their draw at the back end of the year is super soft. So if he comes back and he averages like 140s in the back of the year and you can't bring him back in, it could hurt because those points will actually counter the rookies that you're playing through this season. The second thing to consider is that if you like have cash in your bank already or you're looking at going one down, one up, etc., then you're going to have the same upgrade cadence this week anyway. So if you go one down, one up premium, then you're playing the exact same premiums this week as you were last week, and you're actually no worse off than you were last week. Except next week, bye, cool, play your rookies. If he's not back, he might play 1 week and then have a rest for 1 week and then play. They might ease him in that way, but at least it buys you time. So realistically, it's your banking points this week if that's your actual go-to scenario. Swizz.
Yeah, well, and I get what some people saying is like, okay, you bring in a round 12 player, well, they're going to have the buy anyway. And if you bring in the same round, the round 14, you've got best 18, round 13, and round 12. So the actual score may not affect you as badly as it would be on another round. The flip side that becomes if he, does this is a hamstring coming back from that, do they not risk him in games against North Melbourne and Hawthorn later in the year? Potentially, or there's always that chance that, if they bring him back early, could be a reoccurrence. Like nothing worse than the soft tissue hamstring, which we've seen.
These aren't risking it. They're not risking
it. That's right. They're not. There's no way they're risking him.
But they're fourth. No. I mean, as in if he's good to go, they're fourth, but they're also even with fifth and sixth. And we know they need to finish top 4 to get the double bite of the pie.
Oh, so 100%. But later in the year, if there's a chance that they're not losing games to like Hawthorn and North Melbourne and stuff like that. So does that make him more likely to get rest then as the season goes on? Where Clary in the past was just a guy that just played 22 games, but he's never had soft tissue injuries before.
It's minor. He's got one. I want to hear what Chris has to say, not some Holmes.
4 weeks isn't minor, mate.
Not some Holmes activist. Chris.
When they get beaten by Freo at the G this week because they have no Clary, then all of a sudden Clayton Oliver becomes a pretty big priority to coming back into the side. So, no, I don't think that they go, oh, we're going to keep him out longer, blah, blah. I think it will be a month. I think it will be, which means he comes back after the bye. Am I echoing or is it just like?
No, I think you're fine. I'll fix it later.
Yeah, it's all good. I think it's a month because the buyer's positioned in a perfect spot in that it's obviously round 14, and I think he comes back round 15, fresh off the bye with the whole squad. Now, from my perspective, with low trades, yes, I could get an advantage to trade him out. For me, it would be to Laird. That would be the obvious choice to bring in, because obviously I traded Laird to Dawson earlier in the season. So bringing him down to Laird only nets me, 60K. So it's not going to actually get me an upgrade anyway. So it's like, okay, well, it's just a rookie correction. It doesn't actually improve my team. I can still upgrade, there's other things I can do with my trades this week, or I can hold trades. Trading Clary, to me, this is the most perfect time to get a 4-week injury. It's the only time, in my opinion, that you would be able to hold him. So I can understand why there's big conjecture over whether you trade him, whether you hold him. I think if you worked out, every team is independent. I, for example, am in a different position to you and to you, Swizz, but most people, I would say right now, have ridiculously good scoring rookies. Like the rookies are going crazy. Like last week we had probably, there was 3 rookies that went 100 plus and 2 rookies that went 80 plus.
Bench.
Right? So
Don't
Mitchell
even have him, Swizz, so cry me a river.
Yeah, well, it's practically the same thing. I'm just getting cash in there, sitting on my bench, mate.
Yeah. Well, so the unfortunate thing is Melbourne play on the Saturday afternoon, and
third game.
Well, actually, it's a third game, but it's actually you don't get to see the Hawks.
The second game.
it would be nice if you could see the Hawks game first, right? Because then you could see Weddle score, you could see Mitchell score. It gives you an idea of.
You get 20 minutes.
Well, that's
you
true.
get 20. You get 20 minutes.
You get potentially you get Chin Cotter score on a Friday night.
Hopefully.
So what I'm saying is there's enough good scoring rookies that it may not impact you anyway. Basically, you're playing an extra rookie this week. For me, I didn't play Weddle on field. Ben, you didn't play Humphrey on field. Did you have Humphrey on field last week, Swizz?
No.
So this gives you an opportunity to play the same team that you had last week, but add a good scoring rookie on your field, which may not necessarily impact you as heavily as others. Now, this is the only week that even counts for, because the next week we're best 18 and then best 18. It definitely doesn't matter in round 13 because it's not really going to impact you. It may impact you in round 12. So some people are a little bit heavier in round 12 than others. They've tried to sort of front load instead of back load to try and take advantage of everyone having a lot of premiums in the back end of the buys. But yeah, if he's not there by round 15, we've got a problem. But I don't think it's that much of an issue for my team, but I do think it's team dependent.
Yeah, I'd be definitely having a look at how many players you have in that first buy round, because if you have 20, then what's the stress? You're already cutting 2 players from there anyway. So I hope one of your rookies will go 60 to 80 and just pretend that Clary got you a 75 for that week or whatever it might be.
And we've got, Wardlaw and Ford likely coming in next week as well. So, I mean, most people will have a minimum 20. I think I worked out I'll probably have 21. So for me, again, top 18, 2 bad rookie scores fall out. I'm probably there's Jimby's 35 from this week, for fuck's sakes. So yeah, look, I'm not really worried. The points loss for the next 3 weeks is going to be absolutely minimized to the lowest possible point. And I'm really scared of not being able to bring in Clary after the buys, because I won't have the trades for a start.
It'll be too expensive.
Yeah. And even if I sideways him, it's going to be someone, it's going to be down up. It'll be like, let's say I go Day to Clary. That's fine. That's still 160K right now, and Day's dropping as well.
2 trades.
So how are you doing it? So this is the question that I pose to people. Okay, trading him out's fine, but you have to understand that you are probably 90% likely that you're not getting him back. Accept that or don't. But that is a factor of what's probably going to happen, unless you get a Bont injury or something like that, and you sideways him to Clary later in the season.
And if you get Neil, and let's say Neil's been a bit up and down, but let's go, if you're happy with a 110, 115, Clary could go 10 points higher.
Yeah.
For nine rounds or something. So there's 90 points or so anyway.
We still haven't had the Clary 200 yet.
No, not yet. That's what I mean. So it could be even a lot higher than that as well. So that's definitely something to consider.
I suppose that's a little bit, I suppose that's all angles covered. Couple that with Josh Kelly. So he's out for a month. Now, I know he's only in 5% of teams, but a lot of people will have both, I assume.
Yeah, I think 14% of the top 1,000.
Yeah, that's where it's more like these percentages. Always look at the top 1,000, mate, because that changes everything.
Yep. I remember being top 1,000 once upon a time, Swizz.
Well, it's actually top 1,800. So that's still Chris and
Still not me. Still not me. I think I'm about 5K. Hey, that's actually funny because I had someone come up to me at school, show me their team, and he was ranked. Last week, he was about 1,200th. This week, he's in the top 1,000. And I was looking at his team. I was like, that's actually pretty good. He's like, oh, where are you ranked, sir? And I was just like, yeah, don't talk to me, kid. Get out of here.
I liked that last week because I got invited back to my high school. And
yeah, how's that? Tell everyone.
It was great. Kids were like, some of the boys who knew about me doing the podcast, they're like, oh, can I get on my team? Can I get on my team? And I was like, yeah, show me your team. And they were asking advice and stuff. So that was
how good is it when you look at someone else's team and you're like, oh, I wish I had them. I wish I had them. And I'm like, right. Speaking of wishing that we should probably get onto the Clary and Jelly replacements if you were going to sideways. One guy you didn't get last week, Swizz, was it? Or no, you had him, you just didn't make him captain.
Yeah, Merritt. I brought Merritt in, but I went the safe option and kept Oliver because I felt Shield pulling out was, well, there's only one person to put any pressure on, and that was going to be Merritt. And unfortunately, I went the wrong way. But oh well.
Yeah, I think Merritt it's the clear number one, but the problem is, of course, he's probably going to get tagged this week. And O'Neill has done a very, very good job. So the last 2 weeks he's kept. Who did he tag 2 weeks ago? Someone we all thought was going to go massive and then didn't. Who did West Coast play 2 weeks ago? Oh, now I've got to pull it up.
Nine
But obviously,
Suns. Anderson.
Suns.
Yeah,
Anderson. So kept Anderson to 88, and then he kept Day to 74 last week. So Merritt he's been working through tags, but we've obviously seen in the past he does sometimes get locked down. The thing is with O'Neill, he doesn't tag center bounce. So they let the mid set up the 4 versus 4 happen at the center bounce, and then he comes in off the half back line and tags from there, and then someone switches back. So
that's
it's
why
not.
I thought there are a slight chance to tag either Stringer or Shield, especially Shield, because he can sometimes start on the wing.
Well, so Shield was a late out last week, but
Yeah.
I do think that he's going to play this week.
So that because as much as like Merritt's the accumulator and plays that, Shield can be the damaging one on the outside. So that would not surprise me if they go O'Neill start with Shield if he starts from the wing, and Jinby you run with Merritt.
Yep. Now we also need to take into consideration with Clary his buy. So you're trading out and Kelly. So with these guys, one's round 14, round 15. So if you've already set your sort of buy plans in motion, you can take this opportunity to sort of reshuffle your team if you need to, or you can just trade into that same buy. So depending on who you're needing to trade out or who you want to bring in, might impact. So if you've got both, you probably do have to trade. And I would say based on where your worst buy is where you would probably need to trade. I'd probably prefer to hold Clary. I think that's a more likely scenario, and trade Kelly. Kelly's easy to get back in. He's still, I think, priced under 600K, is he?
Yeah, 591.
Yeah, so I mean,
so you could go from him.
Price.
You could go him to Merritt and bank about 10K.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Kelly's been good, but he hasn't really been lights out this year. He's been good, but not amazing. So you could go to Merritt and then never have to worry about bringing him back in. Whereas the opposite is the case with Clary. If you trade him out, and you might have FOMO for the rest of the season. So definitely be trading that way. But so Merritt's number one for me, and then Laird. Obviously, if you don't have Laird, I think he's obviously gone through that 3 weeks where he was basically subbed every week or managed. And then this week they had an early injury. So I think it was someone got a concussion or someone early, didn't they?
Adelaide?
Yeah.
And then Berry came on. So it was someone got KO'd.
Yeah, it was
Hinge. Yeah, I thought it was Hinge.
That's right. He got in front of a contest.
So does that mean that, Laird, I mean, he obviously went at 147 and looked great the whole game. But would that have been the plan to, like, if they didn't get an injury, to sub Laird again? That's the one thing that we really haven't known. Like, I would have preferred if we didn't see an injury and we just saw it 3/4 time, for example, just another person sub that wasn't Laird. But I think it's pretty safe after that week. Now. Yeah, I think you can pretty safely bring him in. Now, Adelaide's run, so I didn't want to pick him up. I was actually looking at picking him up last week. I didn't because they were playing Bulldogs, and I thought with his I think he had a 140 break even or whatever it may be, that
you might drop cash.
Exactly right. Now I'm like, I hate myself. So Brisbane, obviously, you can score against Brisbane. Then they got Gold Coast and West Coast as the other next two before their bye. And so I just go, okay, well, yeah, Laird's probably going to go really well between now and then. He might cop some tags along the way, but probably not from Brisbane. And then they come back and they've got Collingwood, which isn't easy to score, but Laird seems to kill us for whatever reason. And then North, Essendon, and GWS all in a row. So Laird's got, let's call it 6 of the next 7 have really good fixtures for Adelaide. I've actually been looking at ways I can try and bring in Laird without having to trade Clary, and it's really, really hard in my team. I've basically got to trade out a premium to be able to get there, unless I wanted to trade out Wilmot. I think even if I traded Wilmot early, I still can't afford him because of my stupid trades for the weekend because I'm an idiot. So yeah.
Yep. That's fair. We'll have to soundbite that one. The other thing to note as well is that even if West Coast do tag, it's like, hey, one person gets a bad score and 100 others kill it. So,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Like, hey, would you rather take that risk?
Dawson.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So if you are like me and you have a late loophole option, I don't even mind trying to VC in to that Saturday night game, Essendon West Coast. That way, if he doesn't do well, you can probably try and alter it from there. But the issue is that the Dogs also play at the same time. So who would you be taking? It'd be a bit of a coin flip either side there, boys, as far as the VCs and Cs this week. I should probably let Chris lead the VC and Cs.
I've had a rough couple of weeks, mate. So I had managed to get Marshall's 126 last week, but I really should have gone Merritt. I just didn't want to take the chance of him because role unknown. If I had known that Merritt was going to get 80% CBAs on the weekend, I would have 100% locked him in. But the fact that I just didn't know, and then Shield was a laid out. So but again, had known Shield was laid out, that changes things because then they're really short on inside midfielders. Probably would have done that. But yeah, no, I was pretty set on going Marshall once Gawn completely capitulated for me. But I think the method was good. It just the result wasn't there for me this week. So it is.
I've been a pussy 2 weeks in a row. I took a 119 Taranto and a 120 from Clary, and it kind of worked out because I think the other option like Bont, etc., was 110, 112 or whatever. Swizz?
Yeah, well, I thought I had Goulden on, and I reversed my trades on Friday because I was showing somebody something, and then didn't realize I had the VC on Clary, and I was like, well, I may as well take the 120 because I got burnt the week before with the Bont Clary situation. And as I said, the Merritt, I thought, maybe Taranto spent some more time on him. So once before Shield pulled out, I was like, oh yeah, more on him. So this week, it's a little bit hard not to ignore Goulden against the Blues just because he's already done it in the preseason game, but I don't think he goes that well. But they've still got the same midfield situation. No Mills. Last week it was Warner that went off. Who's to say it could not be Goulden again this week? So that does tempt me, only because there's not a lot of other loophole options for me, like Madden playing that 4:35 game. So unless I've got somebody in the Saints-Hawks game, which could be potentially Sinclair, I don't have too many options for a VC.
I could be one of the only ones with a Sunday loop.
You probably are. Who do you?
Me, myself, and JP, as in Sin, the guy who I thought would play
right.
and hasn't played all year.
You're in a different situation there, so that does make it a little bit tougher. And then depends on. I feel like it depends on who I bring in, because the standout captain options, it might just have to be back Bont in against the Suns and hope he does well.
He's due for another big game, so I don't mind the Bont there either. I guess the only issue is that Zach Merritt playing at the same time. If you could VC Bont or Zach Merritt, that's a pretty tough one as far as the matchups that they have at current. So
I actually don't mind Dacos this week against North, to be completely honest. I think that could be a really good captain option.
Good shake.
He's pretty much been tagged every week for the past since his big. I think he went like 151, 130, 130 or something. 151, 130, 149 or something, like all in a row. And then he's been tagged every week since. So I think he could let loose. And I'm not sure they have an option to go with him from a halfback flank. Like obviously Simpkin has played a bit forward and he can tag. Is Simpkin going to be able to keep with Dacos? I don't see that as a matchup that they're going to win there. So I don't know who they would be able to run. Maybe
Powell is probably the only one that might have. But I don't know if he's a strong enough runner. I'm talking about like a bit of that brute force and that grunt where Powell could probably do a role from that forward
around
line.
The ball is decent, obviously Powell, but
I don't know about his running capacity.
The other left field smoky is Dunkley against the Crows. Like the Crows
he's on a bit of a heater.
He is, and the Crows have been giving up some good points to midfielders as well. So either you can see either him or Neil go off. Like Neil has absolutely torn Adelaide a new one the last 3 or 4 times he's played them. So maybe they again try to put attention in him, and Dunkley just runs around and does his thing, because if you've got to tag one of them, you're always going to go to Neil.
Yeah, I'm going either Bont or McRae. Bont or Zeret, I think, into lead, I think, for me this week. So Adelaide Oval, Brisbane don't tag. I don't even think they'll be that worried. Same as last week for the Dogs. I just don't think that Brisbane's going to really care if lead racks it up. I think they'll try and put someone on Dawson a little bit more to make sure he's under pressure, because his disposals count. So that's probably where I am going for this week. Anyone else you're looking, keep your eyes on here, boys, before we move on?
I'd say normally Port Adelaide players like Butters or Rosie for the Tigers, but Tigers footy law means they win this week.
Yeah,
So,
exactly right. Yeah, now Dimmers. Is
yeah.
he gone effective immediately? So they're
Yeah, he is.
oh
So
wow. Okay.
McWalter's
Yeah,
coaching.
so Richmond are winning this week.
And even though it's not a sacking, we said it last week, like North Melbourne did everything. Well, pretty well was their own selves that kept them from winning that game. Like the change of coach, it's AFL theory. It just works. It nearly happened for North on the weekend. So, yeah.
Can I just say as well,
guaranteed to win this week.
that Butters game on the weekend was the closest thing to Gary Ablett I've seen since he retired.
Oh, wasn't
Like,
it?
So good.
Unbelievable.
And he could have kicked another goal too. Like,
yeah, what we know is obviously in the wet, the guys that have a lot of talent, they just shine through, right? He was doing things in the wet that I was like absolutely gobsmacked. His ball use was absolutely exquisite. His hardness at the ball was second to none. The only thing that was missing from that game, which will probably develop over time, is that Gary Ablett got to the point where he would walk out in the field and get tagged from the first bounce every single week, and he'd still put up numbers. That's the difference between, say, someone like a Butters at this stage of his career and what Gary Ablett was able to do and what he forced oppositions to do. So, wonder if he can get to those heights. It was amazing. I hate that I don't have him in my team. I had him in my team for about an hour on Friday, and then I looked at my team and went, "Well, I've got the money there. Why don't I just get Walsh instead? He's going to be a forward. He's probably going to average 5-10 points more per game."
Crazy.
Well, now they're averaging the exact same, and I paid a 50K extra for a guy that's probably not even going to get forward status. So thanks very much, mate. Thanks. That was really good.
And the thing with Butters as well, he missed the goal to put them in front. So
yes,
where Rosie got the big spike, Butters could have gone the double ton.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah. So look, can you bring him in? Is that someone you can get from Clary? I honestly, I wouldn't put it against Butters to absolutely break the mold and just break out and average 120 for the rest of the season. Like, sure, I think he's averaging over that since his 5-round average is like 130 or something, isn't it? Or something stupid.
Yeah. My worry is like, he had those 90 scores because they do still rotate that midfield around. Like, we know Butters is more the gun in there, but they've still got Wines, Horne-Francis, Rosie, Drew. So there is the potential where Butters can go spend time forward.
And Boak, of course, but he's injured.
Boak is so they have so many options and it depends on their matchup. So I still think Butters is the starting mid, but we've seen when they've needed to win games in the last quarter, Horne-Francis usually gets a bit more of a spike in there. They'll try to change things up depending on their different matchups. So I get worried that I think at some point in his career, and it could be as early as next year, where Butters might be a must-own midfielder. Like he'll be one of the guys no one will jump on because he'll lose forward status. They're like, oh well, we're not picking him up at 600K, and he's just going to become the next Jet. But I still think at the moment, do they still continue to play around with their percentages in there? I'm with you, Chris. I think he's still good enough maybe to go 110. Wouldn't surprise me if he went 120, but.
I think 110 is absolutely guaranteed from here on out.
Yeah. But there's just
in terms of what he can average between now and the end of the season. But
it's just the options.
Can he go
there.
120? Yeah.
And do I want to bring him at 110 at 620 when Lachie Neale's 60K cheaper? Who's going to do the same thing? There's options there who are cheaper that more.
You're paying him for upside. You're only paying 620 is if you think he's going 120 for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And there's guys that are proven who have done it before who are cheaper at the moment. So that's where I look at them and go, well,
he's 9%. 9%. The other consideration is if you're playing for league wins or particularly cash leagues or for the community out there doing that, then hell of point of difference. I'd be going for sure, like looking for high ceiling plays.
13% overall, but like 9% in the top 1%, right?
No, 9% overall.
Is he?
Based on this week, it says owned in 16,000 teams.
Oh, okay. Well,
sorry,
the other
one, I
one
was posting out the Gold Coast Suns. I even read the article just there. Literally gave nothing about Took, like at all, and they haven't done it in a month. So I was like, right. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna post here on behalf of my man Chris and said, because draft doctors are on there and a few other people saying, "Oh, what the hell's going on with Took?" And I said, listen to the people, said update not available till after surgery, but literally ghosting your whole community fan base based on your captain injury update, because he is their captain, right? Like, as in, so that's even more harsh because and I love seeing Took. I like watching the Suns to watch Took. And it's not even about Supercoach per se. It's just going, hey, I actually like watching Took play. So I said, after you're not being forthcoming with the Wits back injury, I said, you're shafting your fans.
Definitely.
Good day.
Yep.
You're very
So
little
I just
fans.
like
You're going to
that.
have less fans than North
Well,
Melbourne
it is.
if you
It's
don't pull your
frustrating
finger
because
at.
how do you not release any information about your captain? It's so weird. Like, and we're not
So that
talking
was
about
Melbourne.
okay, it's the week of or maybe the week after, and they're still trying to find stuff out. What are we talking now? 3 weeks? Like
3 to 4. We haven't heard anything in
anything.
ages.
It's so weird.
And because it's Gold Coast, they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, but they've still got this isn't part of it. Shouldn't they be the most open, transparent team in the league because they're trying to bring fans in? They're trying to build their supporter base, and by doing that is trying to bring have that openness with your club. It makes no sense to me in the world.
GWS were very much pushing the social media aspect and have been for a long time. That's part of the reason why they've been a little bit popular, but it hasn't bled into the footy department. So I understand why that's the case. The other thing I'll say in terms of cheaper bring-ins, so Jack Steele obviously had a 135, killed me again, didn't bring him in because was skeptical about that shoulder.
Touch and go, yep. Knee.
Yeah, well, still skeptical about the shoulder, collarbone. Yeah. So then he goes 135. So I think ridiculous. That you can confidently bring him in.
There was a lot of talk about he wasn't even going to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
unreal.
See how I train the other one Friday.
Is the other one who I looked at last week but didn't end up bringing was Chad Warner. So 137 this week. He's on a 3-round average of 113 now. The thing with Warner is that his role is still sort of all up in the air based on week to week. Now, Mills out does slightly help that, but Mills wasn't playing a lot of midfield anyway. So it's not like he has. I think Warner's been the number one mid regardless, but maybe behind Parker. So to me, bringing him in off the back of that score, going, his role's going to get better, I'm not sure that's true.
Yep. So the other ones for me, it's Sicily. Which is really hard for me to ignore because the back-to-back 134s, doesn't matter who he plays. So at his price, 550, getting a guy who could be top 3 defender.
What's his 2-round average, Chris?
I don't want to talk about it.
134.
What's Day's 2-round average, Chris?
Yeah, I know.
Day's literally out of my team as we speak.
Day's out. Day's actually staying and maybe until his bye.
Pay him out early, call it even.
So I like him. I'm a big fan of Ollie Wines at 443. They've been purposely building him a little bit more CBAs and time on ground every week. This was about getting him right for the second half of the year, and it sees it in his scores: 70, 89, 93, 110. Like the build is on here.
And you guys question me saying it's not yet too soon. Haven't seen enough. I think JP as well.
I was all on it. I just said it was a little too soon. You've got to wait for a couple more weeks.
Then his price goes up. Too late.
No, but his price wasn't going up. It's now his price is there for the picking, mate. 443, it's perfect.
Now it is. As in the thing that sold me before that, 79% time on ground, huge, and the most CBAs for Port. So that was kind of at least the go-to factor. I did bring him in the community league, so that was a nice little shake. Those
got
playing
Richmond,
the community league.
Hawthorn coming up next couple of weeks. He's the one that, like, if I was to trade Clary, it's who do I get, and then like Clary down to a premium, and then look at putting Simpson up to Wines, because I think and we've seen Wines has done this in the past. Like he just goes on runs where even last year there was that period of 6 weeks where everything was over 104, and he had a couple 150s in there. So he's one that really does tempt me. And we've talked about it, Bailey Dell from the Bulldogs now with JJ out for 10 weeks. If you wanted a defender who was in the 400s, and after they play this week, they've got 5 games in a row at Marvel.
Dale or Ridley, if you had to choose one. Similarly priced, aren't they?
No, Bailey Dell, easy.
Yep. Chris?
Bailey Dale or who? Sorry?
Or Ridley.
Bailey Dale.
Yeah, it's not even close.
What's the price difference?
By
20K?
a mile, mate.
Dude, Ridley, that back line at Essendon He's the first one that, regardless of what happens, they just throw him to a tool.
Exactly.
I can't
Yeah.
do it anymore. He will no longer be in my side ever
Yeah,
in Supercoach.
that's
He's
it.
done.
Where Bailey, it's the case of like JJ was actually scoring some good points. You take him out for 10 weeks, so he's not playing until he may be back like the very end of the season. So the guy that's the only guy there that's really taking points off him is out. And Marvel,
Richards.
yeah, but
Richards. Caleb
Richard
Daniels, if he
plays.
goes into
Richard
defense.
kind of plays a bit different because he can get up on that wing of that. He's not stealing points off just the way they play it. But JJ actually does take points off Bailey Dell. And we saw it on the weekend where I think Bailey was about 45 at halftime and goes and has a 100-point second half once JJ goes off. And he loves Marvel. But and that's why McRae is also somebody that I don't mind because, and Bailey Smith's that other one because they play so well at Marvel, and on their run home, like we've talked about, they've got, I think, was it Richmond, Hawthorn, there was another low team, GWS at Mars, which they just dominate at. Like I think 4 of their 5 weeks leading in, Supercoach finals, take out their last round, but the 3 weeks before that, they have absolute games that they're going to towel, like absolutely smash their opposition. So, it's just the only problem is that buy again. But if I can manage it and get away with it, where I can bring in guys next week and the week after, I'm kind of tempted.
Now, what if you already own Ridley? What round did you jump off?
Mate. I jumped off. I went, I think, round 3 to Dacos.
Oh, I wish I did that.
Yeah,
I could have done that. I was like, no, I'll get tricky with it. I'll get rid of Wits and I'll bring in Cameron.
That's the only difference. We were talking off air before with Ben and I, and it was just saying the only real difference between mine and your ranking is I've jumped off these players like way earlier than you.
Yeah, that's my fault. Even this year, I was like,
I'm not going to hold last year.
I'm not going to hold Whitfield. Remember,
Chris,
I was like, I'm not going to hold
Whitfield.
Whitfield.
I were early on the jumping off Grundy to Cameron and jumping on Himmelberg and jumping on these sort of players that, yeah, well, and we said it pro season. It's so important trades. You've got to back yourself and jump on these guys as well. And I would have loved to jump. Like one of the biggest decisions was Canelio versus Butters at the time. And I was sort of debating at the time and went Canelio. Now that could still work out all right with Kelly out. And hopefully Canelio has a couple of big games coming up. But yeah, there's momentum. A couple of people told me they jumped on Darcy Moore 3 or 4 weeks ago. Like fantastic. Because he is just on an absolute heater. So yeah, jumping on these guys at the right time is just crucial. And
Chris, you got to come over. You have to come over. Remember
I'll
the
be there around 16.
No, remember that Cardo 14 that I opened? It was like the $20 bottle. This is the Cardo 16, so aged for 2 more years. Like ridiculous. And then I just bought the Milk and Honey Israeli Whiskey of the Year winner. Put that on the shelf. Like I need to finish some bottles so that way it looks like it's balanced.
So when am I coming over?
Round 16.
There's not that many calories in straight liquor.
There's not. No, it's 70 cals per shot. The Talisker one though, and I'm not normally a big smoky kind of peaty person, but that is smooth and absolutely delicious. Followed by the Cardu is probably it's literally, if you kind of give it a bit of a swirl, it's like sex with legs. Like it's got legs, it's got depth,
welcome
literally,
to Whiskey Insider.
Mate, literally, it's like bend over, put your nose in it.
Right? This went dark. So one more shout for a trade in that I just want to mention. Obviously, Darcy Cameron. So didn't have the greatest score with the 61, but the ruck split was 60-40 Cameron's way. So look, I don't think he played all that great. It looked like a game that he was coming back from. There were moments in the game where he dominated and really impacted the contest. And there were moments where you could tell he was gassed. Yeah, he's just trying to find his legs. This week they have his break even shot up to 135. This week they have North. Now, Goldie's obviously the number one ruck there. I don't know if he's going to be good enough in the tap work to really score amazingly this week. But if he gets a little bit more of a bump on the ruck time, that goes back up to 70, which is what he had before when Mason Cox was forward. And they want to the one thing with this game last week is he only took 1 mark for the game. That's not like Darcy Cameron. He's usually taking a lot more marks around the ground. He had 9 disposals. So if he's not generally a really high volume tap ruckman anyway, he gets his points from disposals and marks and contests. So I think that he could be a shout this week. He's still at a good price. You could also wait a week because he has West Coast the week after, but you got to be careful of the guys that you have for that buy. So just all considerations there. If you're going Clary down, you get Clary all the way down to, say, a Darcy Cameron, 170K and bring in another premium. So, there's definitely options there, that's for sure.
Yep.
Interesting. I'm trying to look at his break even for this one. So we went up a smidge, but with
It's
that low score.
135, mate.
Oh, wow. Okay, sorry. My apologies. I'm on a high over here. Definitely wait a week on that one. That'd be great. I like that low score though, because he made his break even just, but then a little bit of a price drop as well. So
I would love them to
another
put him
stinker
on ice early this week. Again,
yeah, they're killing North. Yeah. Give him a rest. You've had your 2 runs in,
and then pick him up after Dave, because I know you've got the second last buy, don't they?
Yes.
Wouldn't he be great in round 15 at 450?
I'm hoping to not be. I'm hoping to be full premium by round 14.
Yeah, I am too, but I wouldn't mind if it's that F7 or whatever, if I can somehow, and that's
drops
where
30K or something.
The appeal for me maybe is Wines, because it gives me that option where it gives me some more cash, and can I get a Wines M8 into an M9, sort of situation like that. And I think, because I like loophole in those sort of guys on the run home.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm busy this weekend, Chris. I thought I'd have a look at next weekend thinking, hey, well, I was like, oh, Lions have got the buys, but that's okay. Pies are playing. I had a look and they're playing West Coast, as you just said. I was like, right, so maybe Friday night next week, D's and Carlton, we could all sit around and watch them get flogged. Could be a nice little shout.
Come to our meet and greet.
Speaking of Melbourne, so I'm looking at coming down there next year in the first month of footy.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Sweet,
okay.
Mate. I'll book it in now.
Yes, I'll just lock it in.
Like a little bucks party.
I'm talking about in 6 weeks. I'll just come back up to Queensland again and see the boys. But
come do that, mate. I've got bloody 2 kids. I've got a house. Come on, calm down.
I took Noah to Melbourne when he was 6 weeks old, mate. No excuse.
Yeah, he did. Chris and I hung out.
Yeah, we did.
Hey, I've seen your kid hanging out shirtless at a pub when he was 6 weeks old.
Well, that's how we roll.
That's my boy.
You should be ashamed of yourself. I haven't been to Melbourne enough, and I put a tweet out. I'm looking at a Bucks, like a little bit of a Melbourne Bucks party shindig. Might even be able to, as in a football. I want to do a football weekend. I want to do a football weekend.
All right.
Now we might be able to.
In the
first groomsman month, needs to be involved in this conversation. I respect that.
As in
and
the
I love
first
the listeners
month,
are involved in this. Right
yeah,
now.
they are, because as in I want to actually include people, because if we're doing a weekend of footy, I'm like, hey, come and hang out with us, right? Buy this guy a drink because I'm cheap, and then enjoy.
That sounds good. Because the
weekend of footy.
The date's the 6th to the 4th, right? Is that before or after Magic Round?
Before. So it'll be the first month of the AFL season. So it won't be Magic Round. But I want to go to Melbourne.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good. All right.
The home of footy.
Tell me the date. I'll make some plans.
Well, we need the fixture. Once the fixture is released in that first month of footy before, so what am I getting married? April 6th. So we need a weekend of footy, and I want to go and watch literally a weekend of football down in Melbourne.
Okay, so this is a great actually conversation for the podcast. If you guys are still hanging around for this conversation, which has absolutely nothing to do with Supercoach, and you're from Melbourne, suggest some things in the comments that we could do for a Bucks do in Melbourne. Boom.
Yeah, open up.
Get the community going.
And we'll get the community involved, because all of my mates from here aren't going to really fly down just for that, right?
See, my mates, they came flying with me because I've got real mates.
If I'm cheap, I'm not expecting people to pay a couple $1,000 just to come for a night, like a weekend out, right?
Yeah, actually, I think I've got a Bucks shirt on. I do have my Bucks shirt on at the moment. So, not only that, but
Jesus. It reminds me of
the back says, so we spent 3 days in Sydney and 7 days in New Zealand because my mates know how to party for $1.
That sounds like a lot of money. I don't need to be all I can be. I mean, when I look down, I'm already all I can be. But that reminds me of that's my boy. How he turns around, he's like Z-Plane. He got like a tattoo when he was a kid, and it's like stretched, like the New Kids on the Block. It's all warped.
Well, one of my mates did this. It's like it's like a music tour shirt. There's all the cities that we were touring around to.
Right.
Awesome.
So
Epic.
Good one.
Swizz used to be a groupie. Is pretty much what he's saying with that
It's
shirt.
actually a Taylor Swift shirt.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You just put a Richmond
Taylor
logo
put
on
my
it.
face on a shirt and we came to an arrangement.
All
Yeah,
right, we
right.
should probably knock it off. Is anything else you guys want to touch on? I think we've pretty much covered
I've already
everything this
mentioned it before, but yeah, so the plan is Sunday week, me and the Centre Bounce boys are getting together. We'll have more details on Twitter for that. So that will be a bit of a come and join us at a pub near Docklands and maybe even some footy.
I think we
Sounds good,
should do
mate.
more with the community. I mean, no one really. If you're in Brisbane, let us know because I'd be keen to go to like German club or something before that, or even the Pioneer. Chris, come to a bloody game that's not Collingwood up here. But I don't think we socialise enough, and we're not like Swizz, obviously recognisable down in Victoria. We are up in the southern state. But if I do get out into Victoria, I'd be super keen to actually mingle and say hey to some of the community. So let us know if you'd be interested in that, or just say, "Oi, Ben, keep your." Was it, what did the guy say yesterday? Stick to your Supercoach lane.
Yeah,
Don't talk
stick to
about
your lane.
Oh my god!
don't talk about coaching or
That's
commentary. Actually, I'm going to call out this guy.
Shut up and dribble, right?
I've never actually blocked. I don't think I've even really blocked anyone
I
ever
don't
because I
block
just don't
people.
care. But I was like, this guy,
I've
I was
been blocked.
literally,
Terry Wallace
yeah,
blocked me
I'm
one
not
day.
into that. I'm not into blocking.
I'm proud of that one.
And
So
he's,
to
what was
crack-
his name? Like douchebag something. And I said, oh yeah,
Crack at
good job.
coaches.
Just keep being a douchebag. His name is Scumbag Scallywag. Looks like it's a Johnny Depp wannabe. Anyway, Scumbag
great.
Scallywag. That's it. That's it.
Oh, we'll wrap
It
that
for
up.
Supercoach Insider. Thank you for Chris for coming in halfway, almost like a threesome where he just
Special
opens the
guest.
door and goes, "Hey, how about it?" halfway through a proceedings. But we do appreciate your input as always. Swizz, thank you for getting on nice and early. And that's it from us. We'll talk to you soon. Let us know if you've enjoyed 1.5 hours. It's a big week of footy, and we'll talk to you next time. That's it from us. Boy.
Cheers, mate.
I was just waiting for Swizz to stop laughing. Boy.